Hello, juniors, parents, and guardians. I'm Miss Coben, counselor in the guidance department. As you prepare for your future after high school, you'll be meeting with each one of us if you haven't already, either individually or in small groups. We also thought it would be helpful to provide this video presentation for an overview of the college and post-secondary planning process. You're going to be hearing from me today, Miss Gonzalez, Mrs. Welsh, and Mr. D'Angelo. So let's get started. Some students are hesitant about applying to college or about beginning to apply to college. They can't get started because they feel that sometimes the college process is overwhelming. They're not sure what they're interested in, or they don't know their major, which is actually okay because most students who enter college enter as an undeclared major, meaning they don't know yet and they're going to spend the first couple years exploring different majors. Whether they're afraid they're not going to be accepted by any college, or that their parents or their friends aren't going, so that they shouldn't go either. Well, I'm here. All of us are here to tell you that if you want to go to college, whether it's through a community college or a technical school or a specialized art or culinary institute, there's every reason to believe that you can find the right match for you. So there are over 5,300 colleges in the United States, and they can be broken down into various types of schools. One is a community college. Mercer County Community College is an example of this. Mercer has a great program called the Guaranteed Transfer Program. This means that if you attain a particular GPA for a 4-year transfer school, then you will be able to transfer to that 4-year college automatically. You will be accepted. So, for instance, if you want to go to New Jersey Institute of Technology or Rutgers, you most likely will need a 3.0 GPA after 2 years at Mercer or higher, and you will be able to transfer and be accepted automatically and go 2 more years to the 4-year college, either NJIT, Rutgers, TCNJ, and graduate from that 4-year school with a bachelor degree. That's a 4-year degree. Mercer also has a couple of programs that are very tuition free. One is the New Jersey Stars. That you have to be in the top 15% of your class and meet income requirements, and you will be able to go for 2 years tuition free. They also have a new program where if a family makes $65,000 or less, you can also go tuition free. So those are good things to keep in mind if finances are very limited. There are also state schools. State schools, which are primarily funded by the state or federal government, they exist in every state in this country. New Jersey has a lot of them. They are also tuition friendly, I should say, than some of the private schools. New Jersey has a lot of state schools such as Rutgers, Rowan, NJIT, Ramapo, Stockton, etc. So that's another option for a financial quote-unquote safety school if you want to start at a 4-year college. There are also other state colleges, and out-of-state students are welcome to apply to those other state colleges, but you will pay the higher out-of-state tuition. There's HBCUs, those stand for Historically Black College and Universities. The historically black college and universities, many of them, I think that's 59 at this point, have a program called the Black Common App. This allows you to fill out one application and enter one set of data. to all 59 of the schools for a minimal amount of, I believe right now it's $29. You don't need to be Black to go to an HBCU. They do cater to students of color, but just like you don't need to be Catholic to go to a Catholic school, anybody is welcome to apply to an HBCU. The liberal arts schools, that doesn't necessarily refer to size. It's more that these schools want you to have a broad base for your education and want you to take a variety of subjects and a variety of disciplines. Then usually at the end of sophomore year, you will declare your major. Then, of course, there's specialized institutions, whether it's auto schools or art schools for the serious arts student, or the serious a music conservatory for the serious music student, Culinary Arts Institute, other technologies. Penn State has a smaller college that is very technology oriented. It's the Pennsylvania College of Technology, and it's part of the Penn State program. So there's lots of different types of colleges in the United States, and hopefully one of them will meet your interests or needs. So how do you choose amongst all of those? Well, Naviance, you will meet with your counselor, and hopefully you will be looking at some of the great features on Naviance. One of them is an advanced search feature. This allows you to choose various criteria and parameters that are important to you to develop a list of schools that meet your criteria. So some of the criteria that may or may not be important to you are things like location. How far do you want to be away from home? Do you want to be in a cold climate? Are you a skier? Do you want to only be in the warm climate? Have you always dreamed about California? Academics, that's going to be extremely important. Naviance has a great feature you'll see later on in this presentation. It is a scattergram feature where you can match your academic record with the average admission requirement for that school. If you're far off from the average requirement for the school, that may not be such a great fit for you. Doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, but you should know that the probability of getting into that school is going to be not as high as applying to a school where your academic record matches the requirements of the school. Then there's the size. There's advantages and disadvantages to larger or small schools. Larger schools tend to have more electives, more extracurricular activities, even just more courses in and of themselves. Whereas smaller schools, you tend to get more of the one-to-one relationship with the faculty. These are generalizations, they're not always true, but that's what tends to be for large and small schools. It may be a good idea when you're doing your research, and if you can get to actually go on campus, to get the feel of what it's like to be at a very large school or what it's like to be at a very small school. You may surprise yourself on what feels right for you. Your major, if you do know it, is also going to be very important. If you're thinking that you want to go into video gaming, but the school says that they really have just computer science or computer programming, and they offer maybe 1 or 2 classes in video gaming, then that may not be such a great choice for you. Campus setting. Are you thinking of going into politics, or you want to major in political science? Then you may want to think about being in a major city such as DC or Boston or New York. Athletics, if you plan to play either Division 1, 2, or 3 with NCAA sports, you want to make sure that school offers that sport. And then, of course, there's cost. And you may want to also develop what's called the financial safety school, one that seems to be most affordable to you. So, formulating your college search. The best way to do that is to begin early, and early means right now. So get them on Naviance. If you don't know your password, email your counselor, and your counselor will reset the password. Unfortunately, you don't seem to be able to do that on your own. Your counselor has to send you something through email, and then you can reset it. The most important thing is to be realistic. Know yourself. If you've always dreamed of going to Penn State, but you kind of get lost in a big, big school atmosphere, or where there's a huge, population, then Penn State, maybe some of the smaller satellite campuses may be better fit for you. You also may want to tier your schools based on your grades, your level of difficulty of the rigor of the academic courses that you've chosen over the years, and your test scores. Just a note, Mrs. Welsh is going to talk more about tests, but many or I would probably say majority of the schools this year are test optional because of COVID. Some of them have reached out to us and also told us that they will extend this policy for the 21-22 academic year. However, you may want to go onto the individual college websites and double check to see if they are test optional or not. If they say they're test optional, there is no penalty to you to not take tests. So check out the websites. The categories you may want to tier are what we call reach schools, realistic schools, and safety schools. And reach schools are really those schools that are what we call long shots. It doesn't mean you shouldn't apply to those schools. It just means that their requirements are higher. Their average academic requirements are higher than what your GPA or your SAT scores are. And you should know that the probability of getting into the school, if you're significantly have a significantly lower GPA or score than what they require, will be slim. But you could, if you want to and you want to apply, certainly go ahead. Maybe you have some other outstanding feature that the school will take a look at. Most of your schools, for your own protection, should be realistic schools. You don't want to spend a year in utter state of anxiety because you haven't applied to the right match school for yourself. So those schools, there are lots of excellent schools that will match a range of students' GPAs and test scores. And then there are safety schools. Please do not say this is a safety school if you really don't want to go to that school. There are plenty of schools that are quote unquote safety schools that are great schools that you should feel proud of going to. The reach, realistic, and safety schools you could probably best see if you use the scattergrams on Naviance, and that'll give you an objective view of how you compare with what the schools require. Okay, so your assignment by the end of this year, you should have listed on Naviance 10 schools that you're going to do research and look further into. There's all different types of ways of doing research, and one of the counselors will talk about that, but right now it's going to be mainly through virtual tours, going onto the college websites, or from September until December, usually we have college representatives coming in. They did it virtually this year. I don't know what will happen in September, but if they do, you could sign up on Naviance to indicate your um, interest in that particular school, or just to ask questions and find out about the school?
Hi, this is Doreen Wells, school counselor, and I'll be talking about testing as a portion of the college planning process. The SAT test is comprised of 3 sections: critical reading, mathematics, and the writing section is optional. Not all colleges require that you write the essay as part of the test. Check with the college to see if it's needed before you sign up for it. The score on the SAT test is a total of 1,600, which is a perfect score. Next. SAT or College Board also has subject tests. They're 1 hour long tests, and you can take up to 3 tests in one day. They're only required by some schools. Again, check with the individual schools you're interested in to see if they're required before you sign up and take them. You want to take the test of the highest subject you completed at the end of the school year. So if you completed an AP test, you want to take the subject test, or an honors math, you want to take the highest level again. You can't take them on the same day as the SATs. Next. ACT is another standardized test, and you register online, act.org. It's achievement oriented, which means it's based upon how much you have learned through the years. And the score is a little bit different than the SAT. It ranges from 1 to 36. One of our seniors just received the perfect score last fall. He got the 36. Sections include math, English, reading, and scientific reasoning. The writing, again, is optional, so don't sign up for it unless the college requires you take it. Next. Okay. Financial aid, which is a big factor in every family, finance, and as well as the colleges that you are choosing. The FAFSA is the form that the government requires you complete to qualify for financial aid. That form becomes available October 1st, 2021. We at Lawrence High School always do a big financial aid planning night. We did it virtually this past year with a gentleman who works for HESA, which is the state financial aid office, and he also works for Princeton University. Some colleges also require something called the CSS profile. Again, not all schools require it. Villanova is one that comes to mind. Check with the college because this form is not free. You have to pay for the form and pay to see if you're eligible for any financial aid money through the colleges you're interested in. We also publish a monthly scholarship bulletin, which comes out every 4 to 6 weeks. There's a lot of good information on the bulletin. And you also want to register with FastWeb, where you build a profile and you receive emails from them with scholarships that meet your qualifications. FinAid is another one, and Scholarship Al is another great one. Next. The Clearinghouse. If you're an athlete, you probably have heard about the Clearinghouse and you need to register. The site is on the web. You need to register if you have any ambitions of playing for Division I, Division II, and 3 or 4 where you will get no scholarship money. There's a whole set of rules when these coaches can visit with you, when they can meet with you, and in order to qualify, you do need to become registered. There is a fee involved, and we send your transcripts so the Clearinghouse knows what your grades and your SAT scores are. Just going back for a minute with the SATs, with the Clearinghouse, there's a whole chart. It's called a concordance chart. There's SAT scores and ACT. The higher your GPA, the lower your SAT or ACT scores can be. So that's another thing that you want to look out for. And if you're thinking about Rutgers at all, they have already said that they are going to be test optional for 2021 to 22. Other colleges have not made that commitment yet. But again, if you're an athlete and you hope to play Division I or II where the money is, then make sure you apply to the Clearinghouse.
Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in and helping us hopefully help you navigate the college search process a little bit better. It can be an overwhelming process, especially given how much information is out there and the fact that there are 5,000 colleges in the country. So to make this process a little bit less daunting, we encourage and strongly urge everyone to utilize their Naviance account, which is the free account given to all of our students and families at Lawrence High School to help navigate the college search process. It is a college search engine. And today, one of the things that I'm going to talk about is some of the features on the program that are available to you, and including the aspects of the program that you will need to use in order to help us send out your college materials in your senior year. So the program that you'll see called Naviance on your end, on the student and family end, it's called Family Connection. And as you take a look at the bullet points here on the screen, this is the information available to you in the program. So you'll find information specific to each college. You'll be able to compare the colleges because each school in the database has its own unique homepage and unique subset of information that you can use to kind of help you do your research. There are multiple different ways to search for colleges, and a basic feature in all of the college searches is to select criteria that's important for you, and that will help the search engine formulate a list of schools for you that contain the information that you included. One of the things that we talk about this year that you're able to complete in order to get yourself ready to start applying next year as a senior is something called a brag sheet. And when we meet individually with your student, we will show them exactly where to go to find their brag sheet. Essentially, they're going to go to the tab called About Me, and they will find it in a location called Surveys. So when you go into your surveys, you'll be able to find your brag sheet on which you'll put information specific to basically your high school experience. And at the end of that, we urge you to save that so you don't lose the information that you typed in. And then ultimately, you will be sending that brag sheet to the teachers that you're going to request recommendations from, which I'll get to in a few moments. You'll also be able to track the deadlines of the schools that you're considering applying to. You'll be able to see scattergrams, which shows the data of all of the Lawrence High School applicants in a certain period of time who have applied to these same schools that you have added to your list. And you'll be able to compare yourself as a student to the average accepted student to these schools to really give you a great visual of whether or not that school is realistic for you, which is a big part of what we do, is to help you guys formulate a list of schools that is realistic for you academically. You will also be able to see the schedule of college visits when you go into, again, the colleges tab. You'll be able to see primarily in the fall because all the visits are done at this point. But in the fall, we start loading all of the visits as the college representatives contact us, and we put the schedule of visits in Naviance. So when you go into your college visits, you'll be able to sign up for the visits of the schools that you're interested in. You will be able to link your Common Application with Naviance. Common Application is another aspect of the college application process that we advise all juniors and rising seniors to complete late junior year or the beginning of your senior year, since most colleges accept the common application. And then once you put together a list of schools that you've decided to apply to, you will be able to see which of those schools, there's a good chance that it will be the majority of your schools will accept the common application. So it really ends up being a huge time saver for you. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, you'll be requesting your teacher recommendations through Naviance. So you will be going to, again, the colleges tab, and then down to apply to college. And then you'll be able to, you'll see the recommendations link that will redirect you to a menu of all of our teachers. So you will select, we recommend selecting 2 of them, submitting your requests, and that will show up in your teacher's emails as your request, and also a link that they'll be using to upload their recommendation letters directly into Naviance. When you do request your teacher recommendations, they will be asking you for your brag sheets. So that's an important part of the process. This is a screen that shows actually on our end, when you do your college search and you select colleges to your list, you will see a screen similar to this that gives a lot of information on its face. So obviously you'll see the colleges, and this is probably the most important column that you'll see. And I don't know, there may be 10 or 15 schools on this list. And you'll see these little icons. This shows the manner in which each school would like you to apply. So the little screens with the CA indicate that this college accepts the common application. The little blank screens indicate that they do not use the common application, but they do accept electronic documents, which we will be sending through Naviance. Naviance is the vehicle that Lawrence High School counselors use to send electronic documents to the colleges that you apply to. The little stamp icon, and there aren't many of those left in the country, tells you that these schools only accept paper applications. They do not yet accept electronic documents, which just means that when you do the application on the college's website itself, you will need to mail the documents physically to the school. We do the same with your recommendations and our school profile and your transcript. We will send these schools that only accept paper, your paper documents. This screen is probably the most important and probably the most well-used screen and tool in the Naviance program, as we've heard from students over the years. This is the scattergram that I mentioned a few minutes ago, and you'll see that this is the College of New Jersey. Between the years, for this example, between the years of 2008 and 2011, for Larry Lawrence, and you'll see on this scattergram, there are a bunch of symbols. On your end, when you look at your scattergram, you'll see a legend down below, which is out of view on my screen. But you'll be able to use that legend to see what these symbols mean. So basically, the squares are accepted students, the X's are denied students. And the overall average accepted students for Lawrence applicants to the College of New Jersey between 2008 and 2011 is a 4.01, and the average accepted SAT score is a 1302. So you'll see On this graph, this is the student whose screen it is. The circle is the student whose screen it is. So you'll see Larry Lawrence has a 3.23 GPA and a 1020 SAT, and this is where he falls on the scattergram. So you'll see relative to these other symbols, this would suggest that Larry Lawrence is not a great candidate for admission to the College of New Jersey. But again, I want to stress that these are averages. These are only, the pool of applicants shown on the screen are only Lawrence High School applicants. So this is a limited data piece, but it will give you an idea of what type of candidate, a general idea of what kind of candidate you are for each school that you add for your list, to your list, when you look at the scattergram for each individual college that you add to your list. Cost, if you're like most college applicants, cost is a major factor. You will never really specifically know how much the cost will be to each college that you're considering. Although, you know, we would advise you not to just look at what's considered the sticker price, the tuition that is shown on a specific college's website, because there are a lot of factors that will influence that number. One of the ways that you can make an educated guess as to how much a particular school will cost is to use either the net price calculator on the College Board, which is where you'll set up an account if you haven't already, to register for and view your SAT scores. Or each college, each individual college has its own net price calculator. So if you go into a college's website and you research the financial aid or the cost, tuition, somewhere in those tabs, you will find a net price calculator that you'll be able to use for that particular college. And that will give you, again, a pretty decent ballpark figure when you put in the different questions that it will ask you about your own financial situation, so that you're able to make an informed decision about the cost of the colleges that you're considering. So, so those are the aspects of the college search process that I'll be dealing with today. Be sure to watch the other counselors speaking about the other various aspects of the college search process. I want to just encourage you guys to not be scared off by the amount of information that's out there about this process. Ultimately, you will need to figure out for yourself what's important for you and let that guide your search. Again, thank you all for joining me today, and best of luck.
Welcome, juniors. I am here to talk to you a little bit about what colleges look for. So when your application reaches a college admissions office, what do that team of admissions counselors look for when they're reviewing your application and the accompanying documents? So this slide talks a little bit about all of those different items, and I'm going to address a few of them in more detail. So very at the top of the list is your transcript and your academic history. So the courses you've taken throughout your time in high school, the level of those courses, the grades that you've earned in those courses. Above anything else, this is the most important piece. Okay, so as a college admissions person, I used to work in the college admissions field. The first thing I would do when I received an application was pull out the transcript and see if that student met the academic criteria of that particular school. Okay, so your transcript will have the courses that you've taken, if those courses are at the college preparatory level, the honors level, the AP level, and then the grades earned. And GPA is also listed on that transcript. And the number in and of itself doesn't matter so much because GPA fluctuates from school to school, but they do want to see that you've had success, okay? Some students have a slower start to their high school experience, and they might have not as good grades their freshman or sophomore year. But if colleges see that upward trend in grades, that's a good thing, okay? One thing that's on here, the very top of this slide, it says rigorous schedule. So if you're one to have been very successful in college preparatory classes, we really encourage you to think about how you can push yourself your senior year to up the ante, to really push yourself to new challenges. And colleges would love to see that you are, choosing an area, if not multiple areas, to really push yourself academically. And that might be, pushing yourself to take that honors level class, or that, an AP course or a dual enrollment course. We have several with Mercer County Community College. So you might want to speak to your counselor about that, and potentially your teachers if you're going to require a recommendation. Okay, in addition to your academic history, colleges are also looking at other pieces in the application, like your recommendation letter. So your recommendation letters are written by 2 teachers, and your counselor also writes you a recommendation letter. And they're looking to see, what do people that know you as a student and a person, what do they have to say about you? Okay, so we do ask that at some point in your junior year, you approach 2 teachers who you have a good relationship with and ask them if they would write your recommendation letter, at some point before you apply in the fall of your senior year. You do want that recommendation letter to be from at least one academic teacher. By academic, I mean social studies, science, math, language arts, or a world language. You may want both recommendation letters to be from academic teachers if you're applying to colleges that are very competitive to get into. But for the most part, if you have at least one academic teacher writing on your behalf, it's okay if that second letter is from an elective teacher, a teacher that might know you in a different way than just, in the classroom. And then your counselor will write you a recommendation letter as well. You do not have to request that of your counselor. We write recommendation letters for every student who is applying to a 4-year college. And we ask that all seniors do take some time to, or not seniors really, juniors, because we need it by senior year. We ask you to take some time to complete that brag sheet. That will help us and your teachers write you the best recommendation possible. Okay. In addition to those things, your application will include an essay. Virtually every college does require an essay as part of their process. And that's an important piece because this is where you get to, bring your application to life a little bit. It's a way for you to add flesh onto that application. So certainly take time and start that process early. We encourage students to, start thinking about the college essay at the end of their junior year and certainly over the summer. You want to come into your senior year with a good, solid, rough draft to work from. You don't want to start your college essay, if at all possible, in your senior year when you're already trying to balance so many things. So in terms of that essay, 2 words of advice. 1, it has to be a strong piece of writing, so edit, make sure that you share it with multiple people so they can give you feedback in terms of editing. And the second piece of advice would be to just try to inject a little bit of personality in there. Like I said, it's your opportunity to bring your application to life a little bit. So if you are a naturally funny person, go ahead and make that essay funny. If you're not a naturally funny person, probably not the best time to try out some jokes. So keep it genuine, keep it authentic, have some personality in there if at all possible, and I'm sure you'll do great. In addition to this, colleges do like to see students who are involved, okay? A college campus is a community, and all of their organizations are student run. So a campus is really run by the students. They want to bring students onto their campus who have a history of being involved, so that these students can add to the vibrancy of their community. So there is a part on the application where you're asked to talk about any community service you've been involved in, if you've had a part-time job, if you have any clubs or activities or sports that you've participated in. Those are all really important pieces to share in the application, and to give some information as to your part in these activities. Particularly important is if you've had any leadership roles in any of the activities you've belonged in. You definitely want to highlight that in the application process. There's a few other things in here which I don't really need to speak to specifically. The interview, for example, most colleges do not require that. Some might, or give it as an option. Obviously, if you have any special talents or interests or skills or anything like that, you want to try to highlight in the application itself. The last piece I do want to mention is test scores. And I know that Mrs. Welsh already talked about that at length. But that could be a piece as well. This year, there's been a lot of schools that have gone test optional. We are going to assume that, quite a few of them will continue in that route. But if you're able to manage a test and to obtain some test scores to use next year, that would be the ideal situation, just so that you have a set of test scores that you can use if your school is not gone test optional. So one thing to really be careful with in terms of your process are your deadlines, okay? Every college has a deadline that for the most part is a firm, hard deadline, okay? If a school says their deadline for their application is December 1st, they're not going to accept your application December 2nd, okay? So you have to be really careful that you keep track of your deadlines and that you submit your documents either hopefully before the deadline or at least the day of. Some things, some language that might be a little bit new here are the different types of deadlines that applications have. So here you have regular decision, rolling admission, early decision, early action. I'll speak a little generally about these. Early decision, early action, they tend to be in November. Okay, some schools have a second round of early decision in January or February, but the bulk of schools, if they have an early deadline, early action, early decision, it's usually sometime in November. Okay, regular decision, again, this is going to fluctuate a lot between schools. Some of them are in December, January, some of them go further into February or March even. With early decision and early action, you apply early, like I said, generally in November, and for the most part, you hear back from the school about their decision before the winter break. Okay, so that's a great way for you to, get your application in and get a decision on your application nice and early. Now, the difference between early action and early decision, I'm just going to flip to this screen real quick. If you apply early action, all that means is you're applying early, you get your decision early, and that's it. Okay, early decision is very different. Okay, if a school has early decision, this is a contract that you enter with the school and you let them know, okay, I'm applying to you early decision. There's a contract that you and your parents sign, and I actually have to sign my half as well. And that tells the school, if you admit me now in this early process, I'm going to pull all of my other applications and I will be attending your university. Okay, this is a binding agreement that you enter with the school. The only exception is for most schools is if financial aid does not work in a way that allows you to, go to that school. If there's a financial situation that is, that can't be negotiated, a lot of schools do release students from their early decision agreements, but it is not a decision that you should take lightly, okay? If you decide to apply early decision, you have to have a very, good conversation with your parents to make sure that they're also on board, because this is, a binding commitment that you enter when you apply in this manner, okay? So early action, there's no commitment. You just get your decision early. Early decision, there is that binding commitment, and you also find out before the holiday season. If going back to the previous screen, we had a regular decision, there was another one in there called rolling admissions. All that means is that a school will read the application and give you a decision as they receive each application. So there's not a date when all the decisions are released. Okay, so with a rolling decision school, I always recommend students to apply early, because you never know when that school's class will be filled. And if you wait too long, there's going to be lesser spots available, and things might get more competitive in terms of getting one of those spots. So if you see a school has a rolling admissions, deadline, just, go with applying as early as possible, as opposed to waiting until later. All right, so I'm actually going to skip to the end here. And let's just go to final thoughts. So what you want to do now, okay? Now is your time to research. Now is your time to try and find the schools that you feel are going to be a good fit for you. So use Naviance, use the internet for your research purposes. And you want to try and come up with a list of at least 10 schools or so that really interest you, and that for the most part will be a good match in terms of academics. Okay, completely fine to have some reach schools on there, but the bulk of the schools on your short list should be schools that you feel, you have a really good shot of gaining admission to. Naviance is a great tool to use in terms of keeping track of those schools under the colleges I'm thinking about section. And then that's also where you'll be able to use those scattergrams that Mr. I think D'Angelo shared with you. So make sure that you're keeping track of the schools that you're interested in. Communicate those choices to your counselor. You might have already met with your counselor this year. If you haven't, know that a meeting is coming, because we meet with all of our juniors, either individually or in a small group, to talk about the college process and to help you, in terms of coming up with that list. And know that in the summer, we will have our application boot camp, or a college boot camp. And that happens in August, okay? The Common Application, or the Common App as it's called, goes live on August 1st. So know that, after the Common App goes live, so usually sometime in the first week of August, we hold an event where we, continue assisting you with the application process, filling out that Common App and all of that. So you want to try as much as possible to have that short list, not maybe done, but almost done by the time boot camp comes along in that first week of August. And remember, there's no perfect school. There's not one school that's, perfectly right for you. There's multiple schools, many schools out there, many of them that will be a good match for you. Okay, your job is just to try and do your due diligence in terms of finding, lots of different schools that could be good matches. Put out your applications. Fingers crossed, you're going to get some good decisions and some positive responses. And then you want to go with the best match for you in terms of the positive responses that you do get. I'm going to leave you with one more slide here. And this is just a list of online resources to help you with your process. Know that if and when questions come up, issues come up, your counselor's just an email or a phone call away. We're here for you. We're here to help you through this entire process. So students and parents, please reach out. Okay, we're here to help you through this. Thank you.